When Meredith Rollins drove her gleaming black SUV straight across my field again, I figured it would be the same song and dance. She'd stop, glance around like she was queen of the countryside, and cruise off without so much as a nod. But this time, she parked dead center in my freshly planted cornfield, stepped out in designer heels, and strutted away like she owned every stalk. That was the last straw. I'd had enough of the trespassing, the arrogance, the utter disregard for everything I worked for. So I did what any fed-up farmer with a spine would do. I taught her a lesson she'd never forget. By the time she came back, her SUV was gone. Not moved. Not towed. Just gone. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. I live in a quiet stretch of countryside just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. It's the kind of place where you measure time in sunrises and harvests. My family's owned this land for 3 generations. It's not some massive commercial operation, but it's mine. I grow corn, tomatoes, raise goats and chickens, and above all, I value the peace. My father used to say, treat the land like it's your best friend, talk to it, care for it, and it'll take care of you. After he passed, I promised him I'd keep the place going no matter what. For a while, it was peaceful. Until the new HOA president moved in across the road. Her name was Meredith Rollins, but everyone called her Meddling Meredith. Behind her back, at least those who weren't terrified of her. Picture your stereotypical suburban enforcer, oversized sunglasses, perpetual scowl, and a voice that could slice through drywall. She and her husband moved into one of the newer homes that popped up in what used to be grazing land. The development had all the usual trappings: manicured lawns, HOA newsletters, and neighbors who coordinated yoga outfits. First, it was minor stuff. She complained about the smell of my goats drifting over to her deck. Said the rooster crowing at dawn violated her HOA's noise policy. I politely explained this wasn't her jurisdiction, but she acted like the land bowed to her will. Still, I kept calm. Tried to be kind. My mother raised me that way. Kindness is a seed, she used to say. You plant it even when you're standing in thorns. But kindness doesn't stop a person from treating your land like a parking lot. It started with one visit. I was coming back from the barn with a sack of feed when I saw her SUV parked near my fence, not even close to the road. I flagged her down, thinking maybe she was lost. "Excuse me," I said. "This is private property." She flashed a grin that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, it's just for a second," she chirped. "I'm checking on something nearby. No harm done." I let it slide. One time. That's all. Then it became a habit. Every weekend, especially when she hosted wine nights, there at Washer SUV and sometimes others lined up along the edge of my field. Trampling young crops, pressing ruts into the soil. I put up signs, private property. No parking. Left polite notes under her windshield. She ignored everyone. She didn't just disrespect my land, she disrespected me. One afternoon, I tried the direct route again. Caught her unloading groceries. "Meredith," I said, "I'm asking you nicely. Please stop parking on my field. It's damaging the soil." She didn't even blink. "Oh, come on. It's just dirt. Don't be so dramatic. You should be grateful people even look at your little farm." That night, I sat at my window, staring at the stretch of land she kept invading. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was determined. Determined to remind her and everyone else that this wasn't just dirt. This was legacy. The next morning, I got to work. Hammer, nails, wood, just like Dad taught me. I built a ramp, crafted a platform, hitched my old John Deere to a trailer bed. And when she parked on my land again later that day, I waited until she left and moved her SUV. Carefully. Slowly. Not a scratch on it. I relocated it to the back of my property into an old fenced goat pen that hadn't been used in months. She came back an hour later and screamed so loud the goats scattered. "Where's my car?" she shrieked. I stepped out from behind the shed, wiping my brow. "Oh, you mean the SUV parked illegally on my land? It's still here. Just not where you left it." Then, like fate had impeccable timing, Officer Kent Daniels pulled a poor town's only cop and a man I'd known since childhood. Meredith had called him. "That's my car," she shouted, marching over like a storm cloud. "He hid it. Arrest him for theft." Officer Daniels just looked at her. Then at me. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "this is private property. He has the right to move a vehicle trespassing on his land. He didn't damage it, didn't leave the property line. You've been warned before." "But he moved it," she stammered. "Correct," I said with a polite nod. "With my tractor." Took almost an hour. Meredith's jaw fell open. Daniels turned to me, gave a small chuckle. Creative. But next time, call me. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 3 days later, I caught her taking photos of my barn and chicken coop. What are you doing? I asked. Documenting violations, she snapped. Your property is an eyesore. I'm reporting it to the HOA. I laughed. You can't be serious. This land isn't in your neighborhood. We'll see about that. And sure enough, 2 days later, I got a letter, official stationery, HOA letterhead, signed by some lawyer. They were requesting I attend a hearing for disturbing the aesthetic harmony of the community. It was absurd, but I went. Sat in a room with Meredith and 3 board members who looked like they'd never touched soil. Meredith laid into me, called me a public nuisance, said I owned aggressive animals, and committed an act of vengeance by moving her car. I calmly corrected her. Explained everything. One board member, Mr. Price, a retiree who looked confused from the start, asked, "Wait, your farm isn't in the HOA's jurisdiction?" "Nope." He turned to Meredith. "Then why are we here?" She floundered, muttering something about property values and neighborhood image. I leaned forward. This farm fed families long before that development was built. My father and grandfather worked this land. And you think a couple of goats and a rooster are the problem? They dismissed the complaint. Meredith left fuming. I figured she'd move on. Instead, I woke the next morning to "Trashy Farm" spray-painted on my front gate in red letters. That hurt. Deep. But I didn't crumble. I cleaned it, painted it better than before, bright green with sunflowers. I added a new sign. "This land feeds hearts, not just bellies." Neighbors noticed. One brought me a basket of peaches. Another offered to help repaint the fence. But just as the dust settled, tire tracks appeared again. Meredith's SUV. And this time, her teenage son and 2 of his buddies were lounging on the hood, drinking sodas, blasting music. "Move the vehicle," I said. One of them laughed. "Relax, it's just dirt." I turned and walked away. Straight to the barn. I had something bigger planned. I hauled out the old welcome wagon, an ancient hay trailer my grandfather built. Loaded it full of compost, chicken waste, rotted vegetables, the works. Then I circled back and dumped it not on the SUV, but all around it. Like a moat. The boys panicked, slipped in the sludge. One face planted. Meredith showed up 15 minutes later, shrieking. "You buried my car." "No," I said calmly. "I built a barrier. Shouldn't be hard to clean if you bring a shovel." She called the cops again. Officer Daniels returned. After a short exchange, he turned to her and said, "Ma'am, he warned you. Again. He hasn't broken the law. You, however." She didn't wait to hear the rest. Stormed off. But she wasn't done. The next morning, I found workers hammering fence posts on my land. Meredith was building a fence to protect the property line, as she called it. Only problem? The property was mine. When I confronted her and told her I had the original survey, she bluffed, said it was for everyone's safety. I filmed her. Let her know I'd sue if she continued. The workers packed up. She stood there, alone, looking tired. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. After a long pause, she muttered, "Because I'm losing everything." Her husband had left. Bills were piling up, and she believed declining property values would trap her in that house forever. "You know," I said gently, "you could have just asked for help." She didn't answer, just walked away. 2 nights later, I woke to the smell of smoke. My barn was on fire. Neighbors came. The volunteer fire department saved what they could. But by morning, the barn was gone. Officer Daniels found tire tracks. Said it looked like arson. We checked my trail cams. Caught someone sneaking around just before the fire. Too blurry to hide but familiar. Later, Meredith showed up. No heels. Just sneakers. She offered me an envelope. $3,000. "I need to stop being the kind of person I've been," she said. Days later, Daniels brought her son to my kitchen table. The boy confessed it didn't set the fire, but he'd been there. With a friend. Just to mess around. Turns out the fire starter was his friend Jake. Prank gone horribly wrong. The boy slid me a drawing: a new barn, goats, flowers, a sunrise. "I'm sorry for what I didn't do. I want to help rebuild." And he did. Every day at 7 a.m., neighbors joined. It wasn't just a rebuild, it was a revival. One morning I saw Meredith at the edge of the field. She gave a small nod. I nodded back. But then I got a call. From a lawyer. Not hers. Turns out, thanks to an old boundary line mistake, the piece of land where she always parked might not technically be mine. Adverse possession might protect me. But the fight? Far from over.